Good morning. I'd like to call to order the Lower Suffolk Township Board of Supervisors meeting of Wednesday, March 19th, and ask everyone to join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That brings us to our public comment item of the agenda. I don't see anyone wishing to be recognized, so we will move on. I'll take an approval of the work session meeting minutes of February 19, 2025 and or March 4, 2025.
I would make a motion to approve both of those, subject to any comment by the board.
One comment, gentlemen, on March 4th meetings, it says that Supervisor Shelley said that he had reached out to the Indian Creek Foundation. I reached out to the founder of the Indian Creek Foundation, not the foundation. He reached out to families in the area that could benefit from it, but I just wanted to clarify that I did not reach out to the foundation, but the founder, Joe Landis.
Very good. With that second modification, we have motion and second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Sure. Public Works Director, Mr. Jones.
Good morning. Thank you. Just an update on some projects, Bergen Mill Road Bridge. We met with the contractor and the construction manager regarding some the impacts to the park from the equipment and material staging. So we've come to an understanding with them to limit their work and their encroachment onto the park property. Next week, they will be starting work on the west side of the creek, the Haldeman Road side of the creek, in removing the old bridge abutment. Sidewalk projects, Main Street from Quarry to Ruth. We're still waiting for the contractor's estimate from Smile Realty's engineer. PennDOT has advertised the project with a let date of April 17th. So I've been working with the sign contractor and a local landscaper to relocate the signs or even install new signs. So I'm getting pricing for both options for those. This is Smile, this is Dracus, and Kemp Harvest, the three properties where the signs are in conflict with the sidewalk. The Yoder Road sidewalk, I'm still setting up meetings with residents to go over the revised plans. The community center concept plan. Mike, can you pull up some of the on the shared drive? There's the files that shows the plans. So we've taken a step back to kind of reevaluate. We met with the site engineer, Barry Izett Associates, and we're looking at we kind of pigeonholed them into what we thought or where we thought the building should go in a single building. And there were some obstacles or some hurdles that it just really didn't kind of work real well. There were some pinch points with traffic flow and the competing uses between the pool and the community center. So in talking with Mr. Buki, we kind of took a step back and thought about maybe it might be better to separate the buildings, separate the uses. Like, do you have that up or no? Okay, which one is it? So this is, after going through a couple of iterations, this is kind of what Mike has sketched up. We had looked at moving the building forward along, to front on Park Avenue, the main community center building. There were some concerns about that. And what Mike and I talked about, it would be really nice to have kind of like a gateway to the park, viewable and from the street and as you pull down the main entrance. So again, after going through a couple of different scenarios, this is one of the options that Mike came up with. Option A, it shows the community center building to the right. We reoriented the baseball field and kept the existing pool facilities, the bathrooms, the locker rooms, the ticket booth, that kind of stuff there, and then just would add on to align everything with the new concession stand and a new office, those kinds of things, and storage for the pool. So in addition to that, we've looked at adding a second bathroom and locker room facility, and additional parking. And then also, the storage facility that we've been talking about for all the service organizations, for the community center, the scouts, for everyone's needs that, or we're trying to meet. So this is kind of the direction that we're heading in, and just wanted to get the board's feedback on this and see what your thoughts are. Anything?
I think that was quick work. I
Yeah.
mean, from where we were a couple days ago, there's been some changes made. It looks good to me. I mean. You covered everything we talked about.
It's definitely more in keep, what we had talked moving the building and whatnot. I mean, really the pool house and the pool is really community center derived to where you think especially for the new one and the, or if you expansion plus a second pool house running two of those, that's gonna be an operation question for you, but I think that's an interesting use for the ground, so. I think that the idea behind having the building to the right and then still having almost that courtyard effect in the parking area for big events and whatnot is very, very helpful.
And this new layout would basically move the fair up into the complex further. We looked at this, about the same square footage in the field behind the scoreboard, and it'll be moving the fair up into the property further. That would allow parking in the parking lot during the fair as opposed to using it for the fairgrounds itself.
No, that's actually one of the questions I had there as well, because I know we talked about the idea of islands might not be the greatest, so that we can have fair rides and all.
Right.
Just looking at the satellite image, my only question would be with the baseball field, but I noticed there's some kind of structure there that might be in the outfield or cut it. I don't know.
That's those are two
is that
movable sheds for
Okay.
the soccer association that could, I mean, they're not permanent, they
Could
could
be a talk.
gifted somewhere,
Okay.
yeah.
I don't think that they actually will be affected because
It
we're
might just-
shortening the field.
Yeah, no worries. I didn't know what they were. I
Yeah.
could see them
Yep.
from above. I wasn't sure there.
I guess with the high
So we're
school
gonna-
building their own, the size of that field doesn't need to stay the same as it.
They would actually like the field to be a little shorter.
Got it.
Did they use that field for Perky Lakes though?
For what?
Perky Lakes? No, they used to. in the
Not
past,
to my
but-
knowledge. There's a twilight league that
Okay.
meets there, but on Sundays, but other than that, that's
The
it.
size I used was 280 feet to the outdoor fence. That's what Doug asked me to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah,
it's-
that's what the Harleysville baseball said, that they would like 280 feet. And there's room for flexibility. And one of the thoughts behind this is we could push the field up towards the other fields. Kind of plan north, and then it opens up areas on either side to do whatever. If you want a pavilion, or it gives you plenty of room for bleacher seating. And also if you want to do some kind of a courtyard or whatever, gives us an opportunity to do the entrance circle to improve circulation. I think it has a lot of benefits in doing it that way, and it still orients the field in an appropriate way. It's more northeast, right? Kind of right now it's almost due east. So it's actually more ideal according to the Major League Baseball guidelines than what it is now. Excuse me. So if everyone's comfortable with the concept, then we'll provide this to the architect and the engineer, and then we can continue moving forward. It is going to delay our schedule, just taking a step back. So we're probably looking at more of a May or June timeframe for doing the public involvement and feedback program.
And only other comment, when you send this to the engineer, Doug, and I would just recommend, so we could maybe get a little bit more parking, the two stormwater facilities that Mike has identified towards Park. If we end up needing something, my guess is we can get most of it down to the bigger one on the left side of the plan. If we need something within that area, I would recommend us look at an underground option so that we would have, it won't be any really more expensive by the time you go through the review process, and it would give us a greater, even if it's still a grassed over area for overflow parking, it would still give us more usability in that area.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's the goal, is to try to have one stormwater management facility and, down near where the scout cabin entrance currently is. I think that's obviously the natural low point of the property, so it would make sense to try and utilize that as best we can. And yeah, I think we need to look at the overall parking numbers and see if we're, where we stand with, and yeah, if we need those two other facilities, we can, yes, for sure, put them underground.
Just curious with that proposed building up on the left, and I like it the way it is. I'm curious, is that going to connect to that new pool as well? Like, is there gonna be an outside entrance so they could connect to both pools?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, the thought is that with building that building, it might even be, early start of the project, so that you have that as a, would become the primary entrance during construction for the pool.
And that's why I was curious with that parking there. Thank you.
Mike, could you send that to me when you get a chance today? Thanks.
So just one other item related to the community center. Excuse me, I've been talking to as many people as I can about, the funding and grant opportunities. And I was able to talk to a gentleman yesterday who has been using GMS Funding Solutions. They're the company that is the kind of the grant advocate and the grant writer, and excuse me, and they're very happy. Everyone that I talk to seems to be very pleased with this company and their services. And just talking with people, it's, I think we're getting to the point where, we need to at least explore those options to have bring someone on board to try to manage the grant process and try to get us as much money as we can for these projects. It takes a while for these grant programs to get awarded, and there's no guarantee that you're going to get awarded. So I think having somebody on board sooner than later would probably be a wise decision. And one of the benefits, we're the way they're structured, and we can always look at some other companies, but there's a monthly fee that we pay, and it's not dedicated to this project or this grant program, or it's for their services in general. And the gentleman I was talking to yesterday said that, they've been getting grant funding for road projects, for bridge and stormwater projects. And, the company really knows the ins and outs of the grant process. They know all the players. They lobby for their clients. So I think it's something that we, I think we would be wise to try to entertain that. So if the board's okay, I'd like to at least pursue that further, and maybe have them, or to have discussions with them, and possibly have a presentation to the board at some point in the near future.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's worth getting a proposal for it.
Yeah.
Let's see what,
Let's have a meeting. Yeah.
and what the scope actually is when it comes down to it. So,
Okay, thank you. I'll reach out. Mike, there's also a Sumney Town Pike improvement file on the shared drive. So PennDOT's going to be doing some improvements on Sumney Town Pike, and I believe it's in Salford Township. The only reason I'm bringing it up is because we are going to be, for information, but also the truck detour route will be through Lower Salford. PennDOT's going to be realigning. Mike, if you go to page 12. There you go. Back up one. So this is the intersection of 63 and Ridge Road and Old Skipback. So you can see that they're going to be realigning it's kind of an offset alignment, and everything's going to, the intersections, the approaches are skewed. So they're going to be realigning that with left turn lanes. And then they're also going to be adding left turn lanes on 63 and at Barnt Avenue, or Barnt Road. Excuse me. That's the next page down, Mike.
Top of the hill. Yeah, there's ever been a traffic circle up.
So that's coming in 2027. So the official detour route will be 29 to 73 through Schwenksville, and then to Crossroad, and then to back to 113, back to 63. So just
would-
an FYI.
Yeah, I would
what's
just add, I
coming.
think it's a truck detour only.
That's, sorry, you're right. It is a truck detour only. So. Just on some grant projects, moving on, the TST grant for the traffic adaptive, Stephanie and her team are working to get a final inspection set up with PennDOT and the contractor so that we can initiate the 30-day test. A little bit of a crunch on timing for reimbursement for the grant and getting all the information submitted. So we should be okay with that. We're working hard on that. So that's, hopefully we'll have that next week. Excuse me, there are two other mini grant or smaller grants. The Schuylkill Highlands mini grant, I think we talked about that last time with doing some drinking fountains / bottle filling / dog bowl stations that are parks. And then there's also a grant that we just became aware of. It's 2025 America 250 PA mini grant. So it's only a small dollar amount, but we were thinking that the possibility of installing AEDs, at strategic locations in the parks. We're going to move forward with those. Just some department activities. Our base repair contract is going to be going out for bid this week. Will be on Penn bid. The other contract that we typically bid is our pavement markings. I became aware of a CoStar's vendor for pavement markings. They're actually the same contractor that's doing our bike lane striping project. It's Quick Lots. So I got pricing from them for this year, and actually based on the same quantities that were bid last year, they are $12,000 cheaper with their numbers this year versus the bid numbers from 2024 from the contractor that got the award. So my preference would be to utilize them. If the board has no objections, we'll move forward with that.
Sounds good to me.
Ready to find any cheaper?
We're using good paint.
Just some other department activities. Spent a lot of time doing tree trimming along roadways where it impacts plowing and other road work activities. Significant amount of time spent on trail maintenance. There were a number of areas where tree roots have kind of mushroomed the asphalt, creating potential trip hazards. So we're milling those off, cleaning them out. We're going to be filling the cracks. So that's taking up a significant portion of our time, but the weather's on our side, so it's all good. Doing some work at the Camp Wawa Dam, filling an area that's a void that's underneath the concrete that's extends out over the creek. We did our MS4 training for municipal employees a couple weeks ago, and in April we're going to be doing flagger recertification for all of our employees. That is all that I have. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Doug, two things on the AED mini grant. If there's any way you could find, our scout troop has been looking to purchase something to have over at the community, at the scout cabin. And then maybe one that's portable that can go on some of our trips with us. So if you're looking for community partners to do matching funds, we would be interested in working with you. We could get one at the community center or property, and then, we'd be willing to put up some money towards it too. So.
Yeah, and there's also a public participation, public involvement component to this little mini grant. So it would be great if we could partner with the scouts to do the education, to do some training, to help with the install or whatever, so that it has to be done on, I think it's July 19th.
Okay.
That specific day, which is a Saturday. So it kind of limits what we can do, but yeah, we'd be more than happy to have whoever involved. And the community center was one of our the locations. And if we can, I don't have a cost for these yet, but because there are some that are dedicated. They're, I mean, in weatherproof cabinets, that kind of stuff. So they're different bells and whistles. So I'm working on getting pricing for that right now. So I think Monday is the deadline. So we're under a tight window for that as well, but.
We'd be interested in helping.
Yeah, no,
The
appreciate
other
it.
thing, we got compliments for the tree trimming. I was talking to the guy who's the HOA president over in Astor and Morgan Way and Coddington, because they were just about to hire someone privately to come in and do some of that tree trimming, and they were happy to see you guys come through and do it, so.
I appreciate the compliment. Thank you.
Doug, just curious, I know when the Robert Rhodes people were here, we talked about Castle and Frets, and I've noticed just last, I was gonna mention it last meeting, we ever heard anything else, or how many times is that? Every time I drive by, it does seem to keep getting hit, and I noticed the last time I drove by that the cone that was there was somebody, it looked like, you know, when somebody moved it towards the middle of the road, you know, I pushed it back a little bit, it was literally like in the middle of Castle. I was just curious, you know, what's the status is with that, if there's any updates?
We haven't heard anything definitive from PennDOT. But I'm going to get with Officer Dutil and try to reach out to PennDOT again and see where that stands. I know they were talking about their maintenance was talking about, you know, more permanent improvements. I can't imagine that they're just not sick and tired of going back out there and replacing it and paying the bill every time. But yeah, we'll try to push that forward.
I appreciate it. I figured if it was our responsibility, we'd have done something by now
Do you
too.
think it's like on
I think-
autopilot that it's come replace it every
It's,
week?
it's so
Yeah, it's
fascinating.
true.
You really can
Has to
tell,
at least a dozen times.
and anybody for conceptually, like you drive by it, it's always different every time. So, and it's not easy to bet, I would imagine. No, that's all I had. And thanks again for your work with the community center as well.
You're welcome. But Stephanie, sorry, didn't mean to forget about you, but Stephanie has a couple of updates for some items.
No problem. All right, the first one is the three-way stop evaluations that we did at multiple intersections. The long story is most of them don't come close to meeting the warrants for three-way stop. However, one intersection, Yoder, Frets, and Summer Wind, while it doesn't meet with just the count information, there's a possibility it could meet if the 85th percentile speed study shows that it is over the posted. So that would reduce the criteria by 30% for the count volume. So we're recommending that if you're interested in pursuing that more, do the 85th percentile speed study, see what that shows. And then if it shows that you can use the reduced criteria, you could pursue a letter to PennDOT for their evaluation. Honestly, I don't know what that 85th percentile is going to show. We do discuss locating, taking the speeds about halfway in between, so that you're not getting folks slowing down to make the turn onto Frets. But again, we can't say if what it will show and if it will ultimately warrant that stop. But the other intersections are not close to meeting the warrants. So the only one we would be recommending any further action, if desired, would be at Yoder, Frets, and Summer Wind.
Stephanie, does that become a four-way stop then, or?
It would be a four-way stop. I guess I should have said we were looking at the all-way stops. I was thinking initially we were talking about three-way stops, but yes, that is a four-way. So that would be a four-way.
Worth continuing this, Keith.
I think the speed study is fairly inexpensive in terms of the overall cost and safety. I'm gonna suggest that it's probably greater than the posted speed out there. The township did some improvements not all that long ago, and it's a fairly straight shot coming around. So I would not be surprised if we do it and the speed's higher than what's posted.
What are you talking about for a price, Stephanie?
Actually, we actually, I think when we talked at the staff engineers meeting, the police department could go ahead and set it up and do it over that 3-day period, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then we can look at the appropriate hours. Just making sure that the speed display board is not registering people's speeds as they're driving by, because that will have an impact on the results.
I was gonna say, I think it's important to also hear the police's opinion, you know, with regards to accidents, traffic reports and all that, so that kind of answers that. Stephanie, I do have a question as well. I just noticed, that's out of curiosity, out of all the studies, I only saw 3 pedestrians. Is that just based, do you think, to the timing of the year, or do we really not have that much of a volume at these intersections?
You typically don't see pedestrians in January when they do the count.
That's what I figured. It's not here.
Yesterday at the intersection
Yesterday.
of Clemens and Yoder, there was, I mean, 25 people walking along.
That was the
section
one
of
thing I
track.
noticed. I'm like, well, that's the one thing I would figure might be a little different, but yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, if we can put it with the police, that's okay with me, obviously, cost wise, and I do any
I
other.
mean, we can do a radar study in the non-peak hours, get the minimum of 100 samples, and we can certainly do that. But it doesn't
Nah,
take much effort, but I think in this case, it might be nice to have the data over the course of the 3 days. Because, then we can look at all of that versus a smaller sample, on any given day for an hour or 2.
So Stephanie, do you have a recommendation from where to where on either?
Yeah, so I think we said roughly 600 feet, between Clemens and Fretz. That's roughly halfway. I think it's about 1,200 feet in between the 2 intersections. And then on the other direction, it would be approaching before you get into the curve on Yoder, which is another, about 800 feet from the intersection.
Can you send me that?
Absolutely.
You're
I sure
saying
can. Yep.
from the intersection or for a distance of 600?
From the
From the
intersection.
intersection.
From the intersection.
Wow.
From the intersection, 600 feet roughly towards Clemens, and then 800 feet in the other direction towards Eastwoods or whatever that side road is.
Need more.
Right in front of Steve's house.
I see the study as not a need to rush, but I am curious to see as we move forward with the speed. That's my take.
Good.
And I think, obviously we would recommend the township go ahead and do the speed study, and then that will determine if you should make the recommendation to PennDOT to move forward with any study of their own. They would do their own study, to determine if it ultimately would meet the warrants.
The others that don't meet warrants, Morris and Stewart, there's no stop for Morris. Typically on a T intersection, the leg coming into that would stop, and this is different. So if there's not warrants to post that 3-way, should we consider stopping Morris or just keep it the way it is? I don't know how you would make that determination.
I think at this point we didn't have any issues with keeping it the way it is. We did check site distances. That's not a problem. And it's been operating that way at this point. I'd have to go back and double check. I can't see, my numbers are very small right here. The volumes on each of those legs, but at this point we didn't have any other recommendations for any changes. All the other ones were didn't call out anything in particular that would need to change.
And Yoder and Cope with, again, with the additional signage under certain stop signs, leave that the way it is.
Yep.
You.
All right. Any other questions on that? I can move on to the next thing. Okay, Mike, can you bring up the plan I sent you? So for the recently awarded DCED MTF grant, which was the 449,000 and change for the Oak Drive right turn lane and sidewalk project, we discussed because the grant was less than what was requested, we discussed the rescoping, and the DCD analyst is aware of that, so we wanted to discuss what we could do for the awarded amount. Mike, there we go. So we took a look at the plan, and essentially the awarded amount can cover the widening for the right turn lane extension and instead of a full overlay, basically a portion of the overlay at the existing right turn lane. So anything in green we're demonstrating here would be covered under the MTF award. The orange and the sidewalk, which is yellow in this case, is noted as a potential greenways, trails, and recreation program application. So what we would recommend is going ahead and finishing the final design for the right turn lane and grading out the area beyond the curb to accommodate the sidewalk, but the sidewalk itself and the ramps at Moyer Road would not be installed. So removing those items out of the cost estimate as well as the full width overlay, we are down to a project total of $533,000, roughly $800. And then you would also have a potential of 4 poles. Well, we know the 4 poles have to be moved. It's a matter of whether PICO would request reimbursement from the township or not. Generally, they don't, but they always can, depending on the circumstances. So we always put that number in there. So 533 plus the pole, that includes the pole relocations. It doesn't include just the final design and bid package prep step. So we would revise the scope of work to submit the show that it would be for the right turn lane widening for the MTF grant, and then continue or consider pursuing the Greenways Trails, which is open now until May 31st, and pursue an application for the additional amount to cover the sidewalk installation, the driveway adjustment, and the ramps up at Moyer. That being said, I think that, certainly we would want to try to bid it as one project. That would be an economy of scale, but at the same time, you would only be committing to the right turn lane at this point. And the area in green would account, like I said, for the future sidewalk installation when those funds would become available. So the idea would be to design it with the sidewalk, but have that item as a removable item, along with the ramps. So I do have a revised project description, a revised cost estimate, and that would have to be sent with this plan over to the analyst at DCED for their consideration prior to receiving any agreements for execution by the township. So that's number one. I guess if there's any questions regarding the revised scope. And number two would be considering pursuing the Greenways Trails application, in which Grace and I would work together on the scope of work, which we pretty much already have, and a revised cost, so that she can prepare to submit that in May.
Makes sense to me.
Just want, and I know we've had discussions and reached out to the individual property owners, but just confirming that they are aware of this as well, correct?
Yes.
Yep. Yeah, I have no problem.
Yeah, there's only 2, they're up by Moyer, so this portion of the project, I would rather not.
And I know there's discussions with that one where we actually altered to have the sidewalk go across the street, so that way it wouldn't be across the whole property as well.
Yeah.
No, I'm okay with it. Thank you.
So I think we have consensus for Stephanie to revise the plan, resubmit to DCED and get their sign off, and then prepare a Greenways Trails grant. That's what I hear. Okay,
Beautiful.
sounds good.
Very good. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie.
That's all I have. I will add, I know Doug mentioned Ruth Road is out for advertisement. It was advertised on Thursday by PennDOT with the bids due July 17th. So that is moving forward.
I did have one last question, Doug. Do we have a completion date for the Bergie Mill Road Bridge? I know they were halted through the winter there because it was pretty harsh. Did you get an update on that by any chance?
The contract deadline is early 2026, but they hope to be done by the end of this year.
Okay, very good. Thank you. Anything else? All right, moving right along, Chief Medwood.
Yes, sir. Brief update on our conversation about brake retarders. Traffic safety has reached out to the 2 complainants. Try to specify time of day, actual specific location. 1 in Cheswick, 1 in Vernfield. The Vernfield complainant journaled his complaints for a week and then asked to be removed as a complainant. He said there was only 1 occasion and he thought it was a waste of time. Cheswick, we are encouraging the complainant to get the rest of the community that is reporting to her to report to us, and so far that has not happened. So we have no additional information for you.
Thanks for the follow-up. Appreciate you looking into it. Thank you.
We'll keep you apprised. It's still, we still consider it open.
Yep.
Give you additional information.
Very good.
That's all I have.
Thank you, Chief.
Thanks, Chief. Anything for the chief? All right, moving along. Building and Zoning Director, Mr. Buki.
Mr. Chairman, so far this month, we have 27 permits that were issued. A little bit more than last month at this point. So we do not have, no surprise, we do not have a zoning hearing board for April yet. On the planning commission, as discussed at the last board meeting, we will have a pretty busy agenda. We have 426 and 430 Main Street, which is the doctor's office, proposing to consolidate to 2 lots and build a building additions, parking in the back. 310 Covenant Lane, Presbyterian Church, land development. That's ongoing. 130 Christopher Lane, which is the amended final plan that was previously approved, and they found a user for the site, and now the user wants to use it for a specific purpose, and so they needed to make changes to the site layout. So that's on the planning commission as well. 841 Main Street is in for an amended final, and the gist of that is converting that, redesigning that to be residential. And so we're going to be looking at that at the planning commission level. And 440 Hoffman Road is the residential subdivision, which is across the street from the old Slimmer Farm subdivision. And on a side note, that will be on April's planning.
So they're back with just 3 lots now
They
for
came back with 3
per
lots.
zoning.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Delightful.
Very delightful.
I'm sorry.
Delightful.
So we're also continuing to work on the right of way and village commercial amendments. And we received an inquiry for signage for a Burger King right next to Taco Bell. We have not received any building permit application or anything, but we're of course anticipating that in the near future.
Refresh our memory on the development there at Mainland Point, to the extent that they come in with a building permit for a Burger King that remains on the same footprint as what would have been the Arby's. We are good with that. We don't require any further land development, just the building
That's
permit.
correct, as long as they can, that was already approved by the board and recorded. Matter of fact, a lot of the site improvements have already been completed, so as long as, and this is my message to them, as long as they can fit the existing building footprint, it's just a building permit.
To the extent they start changing the physical improvements, they'll be back to see it.
If the extents are, necessitate.
Demonstrative. Okay. Very good.
That's all I have.
Anything else for Mr. Buki? Mr. Jakowski.
I have nothing for the board this morning, though I do have requests for a brief executive session to discuss matters of real estate.
Very good. Without
Intent to
the
return.
With no intent to return.
intent to return. All right, so with that, if there's no further comment, we'll take a motion to adjourn to executive session.
So moved. Second.
Moved in second, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, say nay. Motion carries.
Have a good day. Thanks, everybody.